Hello everyone, is Bringonthechaos Glizzy for another What If a UN assassin has been killed and he'd been transported in the Naruto universe. What will happen to our heroes? They're going to destroy or save this world filled with hate and pain.
Chapter 3. It's been a year since Haku and I have teamed up together and we've been traveling around the land of water gathering information and materials for training when and wherever we can. With the spare money I had from last time, we were able to get Haku a new set of clothes, and with how unruly and unstable the land of mist is, robbing a few highway bandits and thugs didn't make us feel the least bit guilty. After this past year, our relationship has definitely improved and we don't just silently stare at one another with awkward silence. Where are we going this time? Haku asked. We're going to a place where the Kagaya clan used to be, then we'll leave Kirigakura. I replied. Kagaya clan. What kind of clan is it? It was a brutal clan that believed in killing each other to become stronger. Hey, why are we going there, big bro? Wouldn't it be pretty dangerous then? It'd be safer to leave from another access point. And what do you mean by used to be? Does that mean it's not there anymore? I inwardly smirked. This past year, as our relationship got better, Haku started calling me big bro. We also revealed some secrets to each other, such as what happened to Haku in his past and how he can use the ice release Kekkei Genkai, whilst I told him that I'm not actually blind, but was an experimental subject of Orochimaru and had the Sharingan planted in my eyes, hence the blindfold. We continued our conversation while running side by side through a valley. Remember when we heard that a clan was wiped out recently because it attacked the Hidden Mist village? Haku nodded and replied, yeah, I remember. So that Kagaya clan was the one behind that incident? I nodded. We're going to take a look at the aftermath and see if there's any opportunity to get stronger. If we don't have any fruitful harvests, then we'll leave for the land of fire and search for Konoha, the village hidden in the leaves. I hear they have a stable economy and that it's relatively safer there than the other villages. Haku nodded and said, okay, I'll follow wherever you go, big brother. I sighed inwardly. I can't possibly tell him that I already know there's someone named Kimimaro, who's a kid like him and I, and that the real purpose in us going there is to recruit him. We traveled on for a few more hours before stopping to rest in a well-concealed area. We'll rest here for tonight, I said as I gave the area a quick sweep with my senses. Haku slowly took a glance over the area before saying, okay, how much further do you think we have to go? I gave a thoughtful look before replying, we passed by the main river not too long ago, so a day's travel at most. Haku nodded before taking out a few target practice papers and stuck them to the surrounding trees. He then proceeded to take out some senbon needles and practiced throwing them to hit their marks. Since we didn't have anyone to properly guide us and since our access to resources were limited, the techniques, skills, and tools we did have were all obtained from our experiences fighting thugs and bandits on the road. Road. I offered my advice every now and then to Haku as I had plenty of combat experience in my previous life. The main difference is having to adapt to the use of chakra, which allows for more versatility and power in battle. I started practicing my tree climbing exercise by gathering chakra at my foot and keeping a stable control of it there to allow me to walk up the tree and hang upside down. When I had first started practicing this technique, it took me multiple trial and errors before getting it right since I didn't have an instructor to guide me. Luckily, I'm a sensory type and have the Sharingan, so it helps me see and understand the flow of chakra better than others. While hanging upside down on a tree branch, I started to observe Haku's needle throwing. He's gotten a lot better and more accurate. His accuracy is about 95% and he's only 6 years old. His chakra reserves for a 6-year-old are definitely abnormal. He's definitely a prodigy, but I guess I'm not one to talk since my 6-year-old body also has an abnormal amount of chakra for my age. Well, and factor in that I wasn't even naturally born. I let out a sigh which caught Haku's attention. He stopped throwing his senbon needle midway and turned his head to look up at me. Is something wrong, big brother? Did I make a mistake in my throwing technique? He asked anxiously. I stared down at him for a moment before jumping down from the tree branch. No, it's not that, I was just thinking about some things. Your technique is good, great in fact. Give yourself another week, maybe less, and you'll be hitting these targets with 100% accuracy. Haku gave a curt nod before continuing on with his practice. As he continued his needle throwing, I began training in my own kunai and shuriken throwing technique. Haku and I are both 6 years old now, and Kimimaro should be the same. Naruto and Sasuke should also be about 6, and they'll start the academy when they turn 7. Please let it be that Orochimaru did not find Kimimaro, I silently prayed to myself as I threw a shuriken with my left hand toward a tree marked with a target hidden behind a few other trees. Before it could hit its mark, one threw the 2 shuriken in my right hand with extreme force to a tree on my right. This made sure that the right shuriken hit its mark first before the second right shuriken bounced off the first one and ricocheted at an angle where it hit the shuriken I threw with my left hand, causing it to change direction at the right moment to meet its hidden target. I nodded in satisfaction with my shuriken training as Haku watched with a look of admiration. He silently looked down at the senbon needles in his own hand before throwing a couple needles in separate directions and jumping in the air, throwing more needles to redirect the first batch at a precise angle, causing them to veer towards hidden target marks. TCH. All 5 needles had hit their marks with perfect accuracy. Haku landed on the ground soon after and gave me a smile. I turned and stared at him with a curious gaze before saying, "Did I say a week? Forget it. I acknowledge your senbon needle throwing prowess." We proceeded to train in Taijutsu for a while before washing up by the river and getting some sleep. Early next morning we set foot on the road again, and by the time afternoon rolled around, a broken-down village came into view. Haku and I slowed our steps and stood before a broken-down sign that read, Kagaya Clan. I took a look around and closed my eyes through my blindfold, attempting to sense any living signatures. If I remember correctly, Zabuza and Haku had once come across Kimimaro when they were traveling out of Kirigakure. The Kagaya clan is near the border, so if I can't find him within the clan ruins, he shouldn't be too far away either. Once I find him, we'll take him and leave Kirigakure, given that Orochimaru hasn't already found him first. I turned to Haku and then said, "Haku, you take a look around the clan ruins to see if you can find anything useful, and I'll scout a route up ahead for us to take out of Kirigakure." Haku nodded and said, "Be careful, big brother." He then took off. Evening soon fell. I hope big brother Izayo is okay. It's been a few hours already, Haku thought to himself silently. He had already finished checking the ruins of the clan and found some basic scrolls for taijutsu and chakra control techniques. He paced back and forth, waiting nervously. Did something happen to big brother? What if he was ambushed? No, big brother can take care of himself. Wait. He wouldn't leave me, would he? No, big brother wouldn't do that. Maybe I should go look for him. Just as Haku was about to run after Izayo, he looked up at the road to see 2 silhouettes walking his way. Hey! Big brother! Haku exclaimed as he dashed off towards Izayo. Haku, sorry if I scared you. I didn't mean to be gone for so long. I apologized. No, it's okay, big brother, I knew you wouldn't leave me. It's just that I was doubting myself. I smiled and put a hand on Haku's shoulder as a show of comfort. It was then that Haku noticed the figure next to me. He tilted his head in confusion but immediately felt his heart sting when he met this stranger's eyes. Painful memories resurfaced in him as he recalled a similar gaze he once had himself. He immediately deduced the reason why his big brother was so late, and it was probably because he wanted to help out this stranger just like how he helped him. Haku snapped out of his own thoughts before extending a hand to this stranger and said, "I'm Haku. Yuki Haku. Since you came together with big brother, then from this day forth, you and I will also be family." Kimimaro gave an uncertain glance at Haku's hand before turning towards Izayo, who gave him a nod of assurance. He then took hold of Haku's hand and said, "I'm Kimimaro, the last surviving member of the Kagaya clan." Haku was inwardly shocked at the revelation that this kid in front of him was a member of the Kagaya clan. The clan that he had just raided the ruins of. The clan that his big brother said was savage and barbaric, where they killed each other to grow stronger. He gave an inquisitive glance to Izaya, who simply smiled back and said, "From today onwards, the three of us are more than family. We are sworn brothers. We live together and will always have each other's backs." Haku nodded with a "Mn," while Kimimaro seemed to have a new light shine in his eyes. He stared at both Haku and Izaya and silently thought to himself, "I will use my life to protect my sworn brothers. That is my purpose." Chapter 4. Pitter-patter, pitter-patter. The sound of rain continued to fall as a small pot hovered over a fire that lit up a cave with three children huddled around it. They continued to eat out of wooden bowls with wooden spoons. These three were exactly Karasuma Izaya, Yuki Haku, and Kagaya Kimimaro. Izaya sat down staring at the flames of the fire, going through the motions of dipping his spoon into the soup and bringing it to his mouth for a taste as he basked in the comfortable silence of the cave. The only sounds that could be heard was the constant falling of rain outside the cave, the occasional firewood breaking apart from the heat of the flame, and the sounds of slurping made from the three kids eating soup. After months and months of weary traveling, we had finally made it past the valley lands and into the Land of Fire country's territory. We had to take some detours and roundabout ways to avoid unnecessary attention and potentially life-threatening situations. It'll probably take us another month before reaching Konohagakure. By the time we get there, I reckon Naruto and Sasuke would have already enrolled into the academy. The hard part is that we'll definitely be detected by Konoha's barrier and be restrained. In order to resolve things smoothly, I need to convince the third Hokage of letting us stay in Konoha. Thankfully, his personality should be of a very understanding and amiable old grandpa, but there's no telling if they'd even let us speak face to face with Lord Third. I inwardly sighed and looked down at my bowl of soup and mused to myself at how we ended up getting it. Flashback to 2 days ago. Kimimaro, Haku and I continued to travel through the valley lands and headed towards the border near Fire Country when I sensed something amiss. Since I'm a sensory-type ninja, my senses were more keen than others. I slowed down my pace, eventually stopping near a cliff of the valley. "What's wrong, big brother?" Haku asked. Kimimaro silently waited for me to answer. I turned to look at him and said, "I sensed something off. A mile from here there seems to be about a dozen people stopped in their tracks. It looks like two guys are at the forefront obstructing their way." It was then at that moment that an epiphany hit me. Surprisingly, I recognized these two chakra signatures. They definitely belonged to the two bandits with that guy the first killed named Kanwai. I believe their names were Jugo and Senator. I inwardly sneered. I think there are two bandits trying to rob a roaming merchant caravan. Kimimaro narrowed his eyes and said, "Don't worry, I'll do everything I can to protect you both." Haku then turned to him with a soft smile and said, "No, we will protect each other." I nodded. "Let's first get a closer look. They're in the valley down below whilst we're up on higher ground, so we have an advantage. We'll wait for an opportunity and track them down. When they let their guard down, I'll cast a genjutsu on them. Kimimaro, you take him out with your taijutsu, Haku you provide support." "Okay." Haku and Kimimaro assented. We approached the scene of robbery in time to see the merchants give in to the bandits. They willfully gave away some of their food rations, equipment, and money before the two bandits left. I carefully tracked their movements through my sensory perception while we followed suit, being careful not to get too close so as not to expose our presence. After 15 minutes of playing follow the leader, they finally stopped in a secluded area surrounded by rocks and tall cliffs. "Ha ha ha, did you see the looks on their faces?" cackled Jugo. Sen grinned while holding a hefty bag of coins in his hands. "It's unfortunate that Kanwai can't enjoy our fortune with us. I swear I'll kill the bastard that robbed us and killed Kanwai," Sen remarked with a scowl. "Haha, I'll be the first to shred that bastard's guts to ribbons." Jugo laughed. He continued to laugh and was about to unpack his haul when he noticed something off. A small and gentle breeze swept by, kicking up the dust on the ground upwards before dissipating. He turned to talk to Senator and said, "Oi, Sen, does something seem?" Just as he was about to finish his sentence, he noticed Senator fall to the ground dead and a figure standing in front of the corpse. It was Kanwai. Jugo suddenly felt alarmed. What? Kanwai. Impossible. Why, you're dead. You can't be here." In a similar fashion, Senator seemed to be seeing the same thing, however in his mind it was Jugo who was killed by Kanwai. Izaya turned to both Kimimaro and Haku. Alright, genjutsu done. Let's take care of these guys. Wow, big brother, your demonic illusion hell viewing jutsu is really effective. They look like they've gone crazy. Haku remarked. Kimimaro nodded and added, that's not all, Izaya even made it so in their vision they see each other as the enemy. If they don't snap out of it they'll most likely end up drawing their weapon against each other. Hey, I sneered. Those two bandits deserve it. They probably did even worse things than their dead comrade Kanwai. I made it so they think that the other person is Kanwai who killed the remaining member of their bandit team. We all came out of our hiding spots and just about to take action when the two bandits took out their kunais and ran towards each other. Just before they were about to clash they stopped, snapping out of the genjutsu. Crap, they broke out of the genjutsu. I exclaimed. Before we could retreat, Sen and Jugo came to a realization that they'd been duped and noticed our presence. Fuck. It's just 3 kids. I'll fucking tear them to ribbons. Jugo angrily shouted as he dashed over. Sen was about to say something when Haku quickly threw 2 senbon needles at him. He quickly wielded the kunai in his hand to deflect one while dodging to the left to avoid being hit by the other. Sen was inwardly alarmed. He was the more level-headed out of the two and he immediately noticed that if the genjutsu casted on them were done by these 3 brats, then they couldn't be underestimated no matter how young they looked. The 2 needles thrown at him were done with pinpoint accuracy and were aimed at vital spots that could have caused him serious damage had he not reacted in time. Before he could warn Jugo of the situation they were in, Haku charged forth with more needles in hand, expertly throwing and keeping him on the defensive. Kimimaro charged forward to meet Jugo head-on in a frontal confrontation of taijutsu. As Kimimaro charged forward, a large bone protruded out of his left shoulder which he pulled out with his right hand and molded it into a sword. Dance of Camellia, he said. Jugo finally had a look of alarm as he clashed against Kimimaro. What the hell kind of jutsu is that? He pulled a bone out of his body and used it as a weapon. Jugo pulled out a second kunai and slashed towards Kimimaro's forehead, who expertly blocked it with his bone sword. He then counterattacked by stabbing towards Jugo's chest. Jugo jumped back and sidestepped. With a reverse grip on his kunai he spun and aimed once more at Kimimaro's head. Before the kunai could connect, Izaya threw 2 shuriken at him and activated the Shadow Shuriken Jutsu. Jugo quickly stopped his attack midway and used his kunai to block the incoming shuriken. Kimimaro took this opportunity to stab at Jugo's chest. He quickly used his second kunai to parry Kimimaro's attack, but what he failed to notice was the second shuriken hiding beneath the first one's shadow. This all happened in a flash, and before he realized that he was pierced in the chest by a shuriken. This caused him to panic slightly, which lowered his awareness of the battle. Using this opportunity, Izaya activated the Earth-style Headhunter Jutsu and pulled Jugo's entire body into the ground, leaving only his head exposed. Kimimaro didn't waste a second of this chance and stabbed the bone sword into Jugo's head, effectively killing him. Sen was greatly alarmed. This all happened so fast that he never had a chance to rush in to help. He knew he had to escape or he'd lose his life here and now to 3 kids. He quickly parried 3 more needles and threw down a smoke bomb before utilizing the body flicker jutsu to escape in the distance. Izaya quickly sensed the direction he disappeared in and also activated the body flicker jutsu to follow. Just as Senator thought he was safe, he felt a dangerous sensation behind him, causing him to react involuntarily and roll to the side, forcing him to stop running. Just as he did so, a kunai stuck to the ground where it would have been him. He looked up to see a kid with snow-white hair and a black blindfold on in front of him. Shit, he inwardly cursed. The hell is with these kids? They some sort of monsters or what? Without saying much else, he quickly weaved the hand signs for the water-style gunshot jutsu. He took a deep breath and built up chakra in his mouth before releasing it as a powerful water bell with a strong force behind it. At the same time, Izaya quickly jumped back and with incredible speed he formed the hand seals of snake, ram, monkey, boar, horse, and tiger. Fire-style flame bullet jutsu. A powerful gush of fire spewed outwards from Izaya's lips as the hot fiery flames and the cool watery blast came into contact. A huge white cloud of steam filled the area with a hiss sound as both techniques cancelled each other out. Sen panicked. What the hell? This kid is a freak. He has enough chakra to use AC rank fire-style jutsu. Before he could collect his thoughts further, Haku and Kimimaro caught up. Two senbon needles flew straight at him, which he parried one but failed to dodge the other as it stabbed into a ligament in his leg, causing him to stumble and fall. Just as he pulled out the needle and got back up, Kimimaro activated his jutsu, Dance of the Honey Locust Spear. A large, thin, sharp, and narrow bone protruded from under his right arm and flew out at an incredible speed that pierced Sen's chest, which then pinned him to the ground. Blood spurted out from his mouth and oozed from his chest as he lay there in disbelief. The steam from earlier finally dissipated, revealing three kids that stood before Sen's dying form. Sen struggled to keep his eyes open and looked up at his killers. For the first time since their encounter, he finally had a good chance to look at them. He mentally took note of them. Fuck. They really are just three kids. One of them looks as pretty as a girl. Another a freak with bones sticking out his body. And one kid that's even blind. Izaya walked forward a bit before saying, "Any last words?" Sen just looked on coldly before laughing. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. He died laughing because he couldn't understand how these three weird-looking kids were the ones he ended up losing his life to. End of flashback. Well, we ended up killing those two bandits and raided their temporary hideout in the valley and ended up getting a pretty decent haul, so we secretly returned the stolen goods they robbed from the merchant caravan. Izaya put his bowl to his lips and emptied the last bits of soup into his stomach before standing up and walking towards the cave entrance. He washed his bowl with the help of rainwater and packed it away before sitting back down by the warm fire. At this point, Kimimaro and Haku had finished as well. "Now that we're in fire country, do you know how long until we reach Konoha?" Haku inquired. As long as nothing surprising happens, we should get there within a month," I replied. Kimimaro silently cleaned up the pot before taking out a scroll to study. "What's that?" Haku asked as he looked over curiously. "It's a scroll containing some taijutsu movements. I want to make sure I learn as much as I can so I can get stronger. That way I can protect you both without any worries." Haku's facial expression softened. "Don't worry, Brother Maro, I will get a lot stronger too so you and Big Brother don't have to work as hard." Ha ha ha. I laughed bemused and walked over to Kimimaro's side. "I'm glad Haku is able to be so amiable around us. He's even taken up giving Kimimaro a nickname like Maro while he still calls me Big Brother." After looking through the taijutsu scroll, the three of us sat in a meditative state, internally practicing and simulating techniques and abilities in our minds. In a way, it was a form of cultivation to better understand how to use and control chakra. We continued this for a few hours, taking turns on nightwatch duty. For the next month, this was what our life consisted of: eating, traveling, training, sleeping. We continued to hone our skills and develop our areas of expertise. For Haku, it was developing his ice-style Kekkei Genkai and getting a better control of his chakra output when using water jutsu. For Kimimaro, it was developing his taijutsu skills and getting a better control over his own dead bone pulse Kekkei Genkai. As for me, I sifted through the memories of my past life and used my knowledge of the Naruto world to pick a jutsu that I personally wanted to train in and develop. I instantly decided on the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Not only would this jutsu be extremely deadly if used correctly, but it would also serve as the most powerful life-saving measure in a life-threatening situation. Other than practicing the seals for the Flying Thunder God technique, I worked on training my Sharingan and Mangekyo Sharingan abilities. After probing and testing out my Mangekyo Sharingan a few times, I discerned what abilities I had awakened. In my right eye I had awakened the Amaterasu ability, and in my left eye I had awakened an ability called Kuninoto Kodaki. With Amaterasu I could summon forth blazing black flames that burn until my target is destroyed, and with Kuninoto Kodaki I could distort the shape and size of any object within my field of vision, including ninjutsu. I was surprised that I awakened an ability that wasn't mentioned in my memories of the Naruto world I had in my previous life, so it seems I'll just have to test out its full capabilities through trial and error. Through training I discovered that in my current body, 2 shots of small-scale Amaterasu was enough to drain my chakra to near zero, whereas utilizing Kuninoto Kodaki drains my chakra at various degrees depending on how distorted I want to change something. If I wanted to distort an object to become much larger or much smaller than it already is, then it drains a lot more chakra, and obviously the less changes I make, the less chakra it drains. I also discovered that changing the size doesn't reduce the potency of the object. For instance, I tried reducing Haku's water-style gunshot jutsu by 75% its size, but the power behind the attack was just as strong, only it was more concentrated. In fact, I dare say making it smaller caused it to become even more deadly and gave it incredible penetrative power that it didn't have before. I should probably refrain from using the powers of my Mangekyo Sharingan in front of people until I become strong enough to fend for myself. It also takes too much chakra to use these techniques for the time being. If 2 shots of small-scale Amaterasu are my limit, then that equates to about 4 to 5 shots of C-rank ninjutsu. For my current age and body, I'd say that's pretty good considering genin aren't supposed to have enough chakra even for the C-rank fireball jutsu. For now I'll work on developing my Flying Thunder God jutsu. Even though it's a S-rank jutsu, the drain on my chakra isn't much due to it being proportional to the size of the object being teleported. What makes it S-rank is the potential lethality of the technique and the complicated knowledge one has to have of the sealing technique, as well as creating the formation of a space-time network that connects to the sealing formula. Then one has to be able to execute the technique by connecting the object through either their seal or chakra to the space-time network that allows for instant teleportation. I like the design of the 4th Hokage's Flying Thunder God kunai. If we get accepted into the Leaf Village, I'll see if there's a way to manufacture my own. For now I'll stick to inscribing my Flying Thunder God seal onto these blank paper tags that I have and attach them to regular kunai. Day, night, weeks continued to pass by until finally. I let out a large breath. Kimimaro and Haku also let out a breath of relief as they stood beside me. Finally, we made it. It took about 41 days. A bit longer than expected, but we're finally here. I let out. Haku nodded. Since we're here, if we go any closer we'll be detected by Konoha's barrier. Kimimaro assented. Right. How should we approach? Well, I think honesty is going to be the best option for us. First off, we're just 3 kids about age 7. Secondly, we haven't done anything to incite Konoha's ire. Thirdly, if we attempt to do anything suspicious like sneaking around and get caught, it'd end up causing more confusion and chaos. Since we want to join of our own free will anyways and haven't done anything against Konoha, we should politely turn ourselves in and just explain the situation to them. I heard the 3rd Hokage is very amiable and understanding. He may be suspicious at first, but I reckon he won't just leave 3 kids alone with nowhere to go, especially if they come knocking on his front doorstep asking for help and shelter. You both can leave the talking to me. Kimimaro and Haku nodded. I gave them both a look of assurance. Then let's go. Chapter 5, Lord Third. Chapter 5. Puff. A plume of white smoke filled the air as the 3rd Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, smoked his pipe. He flipped over some paperwork while relishing the taste of tobacco in his mouth. Knock, knock. Enter. He said with a deep and old voice as he gently placed the paperwork to the side and straightened his back in his chair awaiting his guest. From the other side of the door was heard a cough. Ahem. Excuse me for disturbing you, Lord Hokage. The door to the Hokage's room opened to reveal a Jonin, Kodetsu Hagen, one of the guards to the entrance of Konoha. Oh, Kodetsu, what brings you here? Hiruzen asked. As Kodetsu walked inside, Kimimaro, Haku, and myself followed suit. As it turns out, even though we were a bit nervous as to how things would go down, aside from the Konoha guards being a bit wary and asking a lot of questions, they ended up humoring our request and took us to see the 3rd Hokage. Hiruzen gave a surprised look as he saw the 3 unfamiliar children walk in behind Kodetsu. Kodetsu cleared his throat before explaining the situation to the 3rd Hokage. Lord Third, these 3 children claim that they fled from the country of water. They claim that they aren't affiliated with the village hidden in the mist. Kodetsu said. Hiruzen had a pensive look on his face before speaking. Even if they claim they are not affiliated with the village hidden in the mist, it can't be denied that they were born in the country of water, therefore, they are rightful citizens of that country. There. Kodetsu gave a sheepish look and rubbed the back of his neck before Hiruzen continued on. Ha ha ha, all right, I don't want to make things difficult. Children, why don't you tell me your names? Why have you come so far to Konoha? Hiruzen asked amiably. He then gave another puff of smoke from his pipe. The 3 of us looked at each other before I stepped up to speak. Greetings, Lord Hokage, my name is Izaya. Karasuma Izaya. These two are my sworn brothers, Yuki Haku and Kagaya Kimimaro. I. Hiruzen let out a surprised remark and also a look of deep contemplation. He stroked his beard as he spoke. Yuki. I recall there was a famous Yuki clan in the Land of Water, however, I heard their clan was wiped out after the Kekkei Genkai War a while back. And Kagaya. I was certain that I received news regarding the Kagaya clan. It waged war against the village hidden in the mist and they were exterminated not long ago. Forgive me, but I've not heard of the Karasuma clan or tribe. Both Haku and Kimimaro flinched inwardly, having their past brought up. Hiruzen seemed to notice this, which inwardly confirmed his suspicion that these two were indeed of the famous Yuki and Kagaya clan he mentioned. He softened his expression after realizing that these two children in front of him were probably the last of their clan. Ahem. My apologies for bringing up such a dark part of history. It seems from your reaction that you both are surviving members of the Yuki and Kagaya clan. I'm sorry children such as yourselves had to go through something as terrible as a war like that. He then turned his attention towards me. You said your name is Karasuma Ise, are you correct? I see that the three of you indeed have very close ties together and it appears that you are able to speak for both of your companions. Would you mind telling me why the three of you have come all this way? I turned my head at the Jonin, Kodetsu, who brought us in before turning back to face the third Hokage. I must first apologize, Lord Third Hokage. Before I answer you, might I be so bold to ask for an audience in private? This concerns my life. Hiruzen became more and more curious about these three children and before Kodetsu could protest, he said, very well. Kodetsu, why don't you bring Haku and Kimimaro and wait in the hallway while I speak to our young friend here? Kodetsu gave a defeated look but assented whilst I nodded silently to Haku and Kimimaro, letting them know it was okay. After they walked out, they shut the door behind them. Now, young friend, what is it that you wish to speak to me in private about? Hiruzen continued. Lord Third, to tell you the truth, I am actually an abandoned experimental subject of Orochimaru. Hiruzen's eyes nearly jumped out of their sockets as he exclaimed, what? Followed by a series of coughing from inhaling the smoke on his pipe to fast. After a few seconds he finally calmed down and studied me more closely with his eyes. After more rounds of inquiry and explaining, I came to tell him the whole story, of course minus the part of my reincarnation and a few other minor details. Overall I painted the big picture of how Haku, Kimimaro, and I came to be here today. And that is why we sincerely hope you grant us permission to stay and be a part of this village. I finished saying and gave a deep 90-degree bow. Hiruzen mused thoughtfully as he went back to stroking his beard and puffing smoke out of his pipe. Raise your head. There's no need for you to show such humility. Your circumstance was brought about by my foolish disciple. Sigh. Oh Orochimaru. What have you been doing? In short, that boy Haku and Kimimaro no longer have a home to return to. They are not listed as rogue ninja as they have not committed any acts of evil. They are not eligible to be claimed by the village hidden in the mist since they were merely born in the country of water but not affiliated with the shinobi system there, and you were abandoned by Orochimaru as he believed you to be dead. You are not actually blind but possess the Sharingan, and the reason you wear a sealing blindfold is to ensure your safety from other shinobi who may harbor evil intention of your eyes. You all wish to become part of the village hidden in the leaves as proper leaf shinobi. I looked up from my position as I gave a curt nod and replied, yes Lord Third. For what seemed like a lifetime was actually just a split second, but waiting for Lord Third to make a decision on the spot was nerve-wracking. Very well. I consent to this. I breathed out a sigh of relief at that moment. Hiruzen gave an amiable laugh before looking straight at me. Would you mind showing me your eyes? I hesitated for a second, but slowly took off my ragged black blindfold, revealing the blood-red black patterned eyes of the Sharingan. What caught me off guard was that Lord Third had a look of sorrow the minute he saw them. I understood at that moment that he probably felt grief for what he put Itachi through and sorrow for the loss of an entire clan that he couldn't protect. Hiruzen let out a sigh and then pulled something out of a drawer. It was a fine black-colored cloth. Before I could react, Lord Third formed some hand seals and then placed his hands on the black cloth before saying, seal. The beautiful golden light emanated from the cloth before dissipating. I understand why you would like to keep your eyes hidden from sight. In fact, I'm impressed you could even perform the one-way concealing visual seal in the first place. It is true that the topic of Sharingan and the Uchiha clan right now are sensitive subjects, therefore, at least for now, I will help you conceal your Sharingan. The sealing jutsu I just performed is known as the one-way heavenly concealment visual seal and is many times more powerful than the one you had on. With your sealing jutsu you could fool ordinary ninja but not those who either wield special dojutsu of their own or are adept at sensory-type techniques. With the one-way heavenly concealment visual seal I used, it can conceal your eyes from all those who wish to see through this blindfold. Even those with the Byakugan or Mangekyo Sharingan. Alright, come put this blindfold on and then tell the others to come in. While all that happened I had watched intently and memorized the hand seals Lord Third had used to perform the sealing technique and stored the memory in the back of my mind, compliments of the Sharingan. I nodded to Lord Third and thanked him for the blindfold before tying it on and calling the others back inside. Hiruzen looked up at Kotetsu before saying, "Kotetsu, I've heard what our young friend Izaya had to say and have come to a decision. From this day forth Konoha will have gained 3 excellent young shinobi. I will have their transfer papers prepared so that they may begin enrollment at the academy starting next week." Hey! Kotetsu gave a confused look. Then again he wasn't really against the 3 youngins sticking around. They were well behaved enough and didn't seem like bad kids. Hiruzen then continued on, "I will finalize their paperwork today and have them listed in our system. Please find a nice place for the 3 of them to live in the meantime." Yes, Lord Third. I shall do as you say. He saluted the third Hokage before bringing the 3 kids out to look for a place to live. Kotetsu brought the 3 of us to get a glimpse of the essential spots in town such as where we could get food, buy clothes, the location of the academy, where the training grounds were and more. As we were walking around town finishing up our tour I noticed a familiar bright orange color attire out of the corner of my eye and briefly paused. I know I have it here somewhere. Isn't that Naruto? I silently thought to myself. And of course he's looking for a coupon to Ikaraku's ramen shop. Found it. Naruto laughed in his disheveled appearance. I knew I had it on me. I forgot I placed the coupon in the inside pocket of my jacket. Haku momentarily paused and turned to look at me after he noticed I wasn't walking by their side anymore. He stared where I was looking and saw a disheveled orange-clothed yellow-haired kid getting some ramen. Confused at why Izaya had stopped he called out, "Big brother, is something wrong?" I snapped out of my stupor and turned my head back to Haku and jogged over to him. "Sorry, I just thought that guy was a bit interesting. Let's catch up to Kimimaro and Kotetsu-sensei." "MN." Haku nodded. He gave Naruto one more quick glance before running alongside Izaya back to Kimimaro and Kotetsu. Not long after Kotetsu brought us to some apartment buildings and after discussing in private to the person in charge we got settled into our apartment room number. "Alright, you 3 have your own apartment rooms. Izaya is in room 309, Haku gets 310, and Kimimaro is in 311. For now the Leaf Village will cover the cost of your living quarters until you 3 graduate from the academy. You'll receive a monthly stipend to help you buy some food to eat. It's not much so please spend it wisely, okay? You'll receive a letter sometime in the next couple of days to officiate your enrollment to the academy. Since the school year started already you'll be announced as transfer students. From this day forth you'll be citizens of the Land of Fire and Shinobi of Konoha. Lord Third has gone out of his way to accept you 3 kids so don't disappoint him, okay? Alright, any questions?" The 3 of us simply nodded our heads as Kotetsu went on with his speech. "No questions," I said. I then looked at Haku and Kimimaro and as if we all understood each other, we all cupped our fists as a show of respect and bowed saying, "Thank you for taking care of us Kotetsu-sensei." Kotetsu instantly turned red in the face from embarrassment and sheepishly rubbed the back of his neck. He turned his head to look away and said, "It's only natural that I should help you kids in need. Don't think about it too much. If you've got any questions you can always come find me. I'll be at the main entrance guarding the gate most of the time. Alright, I've been away from duty too long I'm sure my partner is getting anxious." He then turned to look at the 3 kids in front of him one last time before saying, "Take good care of yourselves, okay? He then disappeared in a puff of smoke with the body flicker jutsu. He seemed nice. Haku commented. As long as he doesn't hurt you too. Kimimaro remarked. Haha, I chuckled lightly, wondering if Kimimaro will ever lighten up a little. Okay, let's check out our rooms and rest, it's been a long day. We'll meet up tomorrow morning and go shopping for some new clothes. Kimimaro and Haku nodded before we parted ways.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like this video if you want some more what if video. Comment 3 hearts for more what if.